Hello, everyone. In this session, we're going to talk about the business tax. So we're going to talk how to pass the business tax exam for your AAT. Now, the business tax exam could be really a time struggling because if you cannot manage the time properly, maybe you will not be able to complete all the question. For that reason, we have to know which question will be in the exam, from which area, how many marks, which question I'm going to start with, what will be my first question to answer, which one will be the next. So we need to make a proper plan. So we're going to go through very quickly all of this thing. Let's start with that. The first thing we have to know, the AAT business tax exam is 2 hours, and we have to answer 11 questions. In 2 hours, we have to answer 11 tasks. Every task can have a different marks, and it will be total 100, and we have to score 70% to pass the exam. So let's have a look. The first one we are looking at here, that is task 1. Task 1 for 8 marks. So you can see here, the first question will be to calculate the taxable profit. This is one of the easiest question you're expecting on this exam. All we have to do, we have to find it out how much was the profit from the account. So based on the accounting profit, how much it is, and we have to adjust some disallowable expenditure, and if there is any allowable expenditure, we have to take it out. For example, if we have a profit per accounts, we start with that figure, for example, 10,000, and we add back the depreciation. So depreciation is a disallowable expenditure for the corporation tax calculation purpose. We need to add back the depreciation. And also, for example, we need to take away the capital allowance. So this question will be very precise. They will give in a box. So you have to start with accounting profit. You need to add back the depreciation minus the capital allowance. And if there are any other adjustment, you have to do that. So that's how we can answer this question. The area we are looking at to make ourselves ready in the exam, we need to look at what is the difference between the limited company and the sole trader, because the adjustment for the limited company and the sole trader could be different. For example, if you are a sole trader, and if the sole trader take any salary from the business, that will be add back. If the sole trader paid anything of his personal expense, for example, he paid his council tax bill, he paid for his children holiday, anything he paid for the personal expense, it will be add back. So you need to be very careful for that. So we need to identify, is it a sole trader business or it is a limited company? We need to read the question very carefully. Also, for example, any drawings or any personal expense, we need to add back. We need to be careful with some other thing as well. For example, the car and also the lease and also the penalty, the fine. Sometimes if you are a limited company, the fine could be allowable if your employee drive the car, and if there's a penalty for the business purpose, sometimes the penalty cannot be allowable expenditure. So you need to know when it is allowable, when it is not. So you need to make sure you keep a note for that. For this 8 marks question, quite straightforward. All you have to do, you have to start with the accounting profit, add back depreciation, add back all the disallowable expenditure, and take away the capital allowance, and you'll be fine for that. The next question, question number 2, from the capital allowance. This is one of the tricky question. Sometimes I recommend a student to do this question, the last one. So this could be your difficult question, because sometimes it's very difficult to identify some of the area for this question, because you have to remember a lot for this capital allowance purpose. For example, on the capital allowance, you have to know the FYA. So what is FYA? First year allowance. So this is only for the car, and you cannot apportion it. So even though the accounting period is for 6 months only, but still you have to give the full year allowance. So you need to know this thing. For example, the general pool always have opening balance. So what was the closing balance for the last period or last year? It will be the opening for this period or this year. Then the special rate pool, what is the rate? For example, 6%, and also the private use asset. So if the car used for the private use, is it used by the director, or it is used by the owner, or it is used by the employee? So there will be different treatment, and you have to know this thing. Also, like the DWA percentage, and remember the CO2 for the car. For example, the car can be the FYA, the car can be the general pool, depends what type of CO2 emission the car have. So you need to make a note all of this. 12 marks, that will give you like the whole picture. So you start with the boxes. So you start with AYA. You need to remember what is the maximum allowance for the AYA. For example, if there is any asset is eligible for the super deduction. For example, if you have a new plant and machinery, remember that you can claim the super deduction, and the super deduction is 130%. And you need to remember this is started from April 2021. So if the date is before that, that means you cannot give the super deduction even though it is a plant or machinery. So you need to remember that. If something is eligible for the AIA, that is annual investment allowance, so here we need to look at our allowance. So the maximum we have allowance 1 million. So if there is anything more than 1 million, the value, we have to find the remaining value and the balance will go to the general pool. After that, if the business is closed, then you have to find it out is there is a balancing allowance or is there is a balancing charge. So all of this thing you have to learn for this capital allowance question, and this question can be 12 marks in the exams. Obviously, you need to be very careful is this area. If any student, they're good on this question, they are good on other question as well, because the capital allowance will be linked with few other questions as well. So 12 marks from capital allowance, question number 2. Question number 3 we have here, basis period. So we need to understand the opening year rules, closing year rules, overlap profit, and choosing the right accounting year. So sometimes they can give you some situation. They will tell you like, what will be the best period for this person to choose for the accounting year. So is it better to choose April to March? It is better to choose January to December. So based on the workings, you have to give some advice to that person. It's very important. Also, the opening year rules could be a little bit tricky because you need to know when the person started the business. For example, if the person started the business 2018, from that day you have to find it out till next 5th of April. So that will be the first tax year. And then you have to look at how long was the accounting period on the second tax year. Is it less than 12 months? It is 12 months. It is more than 12 months. So based on the accounting period, how long it is, based on that, the treatment will be different. So you need to be very careful for this question, tax 2. And the 6 months, if you know the answer, it's very easy. You will get this mark very quickly. But if you don't know, it could be very much difficult for you. The next one we have here, task 4, that is partnership and the national insurance contribution. So from the partnership, we're looking at 8 marks. Question number 4 will be from the partnership. Remember that the way you have to make yourself ready, you don't get surprised on the exam day. So that you know, like if I open the question number 5, this question will be there. If I open the question number 6, this question will be there. So you really don't have to be surprised. And you know which area you are good at. So you start with that question first. So on the partnership, we have to looking at few things. So when the existing partner leave on the partnership, for example, if the partner leave in the middle and new partner join, so the partnership ratio normally change. For example, before it was equal 50-50 or 1:1, now it is 2:1 or 30-70%. So you need to change it. So you need to break it down the year. So you have to know how does it work. Also, when the existing partner leave the partnership business, there will be implication for the goodwill. So you have to know how to create the goodwill, and after that, how to eliminate the goodwill. So you have to know that. It's very important. Also, the interest on drawings and also interest on capital, we need to know how to adjust it with the sharing profit and also the salary. Sometimes they will give us the salary for the month. For example, every month's salary is 1,000. So if the partner worked for 6 months, then it will be 6,000. If the partner worked for the whole year, is 12,000. Or they will tell you the salary for the whole year is 12,000. So if the partner worked for only 3 months, it will be 3,000. So you need to be very careful with this wording in the exam. The next one we're looking at here, our tax number 5, that will be capital gain tax. Another tricky area, you need to make sure you remember all the rules for the capital gain tax. Remember that if it is a limited company, then we will have to do extra calculation for the indexation. Normally for the individual, they are not allowed to get the indexation, but we have to remember that indexation is stopped on December 2017. So after December 2017, we cannot do the indexation. In the exam, they will give you some other factor, other fraction number to calculate the indexation intentionally to make you confused. But we have to remember the indexation is stopped December 2017. So any indexation factor we do not consider after that day. Also, we need to looking at the chargeable gain and the capital gain. What is the difference? So we need to understand how to work out the annual exemption amount. Now, annual exemption amount is 12,300 for the year. And remember that it cannot be carried forward. So annual exemption amount, if we cannot use it, it will be wasted. Also, if there is a current year loss, how are we going to adjust it? Remember that if there is a current year loss, we have to adjust it first before we can adjust any previous year loss. So we need to remember the template. So for example, this year gain, then current year loss, then annual exemption, then previous year loss carried forward. So you need to know the template, how does it work. And after that, you have to calculate the capital gain tax. Remember that the capital gain tax is 10% for the basic rate taxpayer. If you are a high rate or additional rate taxpayer, the rate is 20%. You need to remember that, but don't forget the relief. If there is a relief, for example, the business asset disposal relief, or if there is a rollover relief, then you have to always consider that. So very careful with the relief with the capital gain tax. 6 marks question could be very easy if you know the answer. The next one is question number 6. Tax 6 will be for 9 marks, and that will be from the share disposal. I would say this question will be really easy because it's a little big, but it's a very interesting question, and you know exactly how to do it. So the first thing we need to know for the share disposal for the company, do not mix it up with the individual or the company for the matching rules. So the matching rules is same day, previous 9 days, and the share pool 1985. So you need to know how to match the share against the proceed. That's the first thing. If there is no same day, if there is no previous 9 days, remember that we have to follow the share pool. So you need to know all the calculation for the share pool, especially do not forget the indexation, how to do it. So again, I remember you, I'm going to remind you that the indexation is stopped December 2017. Do not give any indexation allowance after that. Very careful with that. So with the share disposal, we have to remember few things. The first thing we need to remember that is if there is a right issue, then the share will be issued less than the market price. But as long as any money coming to the business, as long as there is a cost involved, remember that do not forget to do the indexation. So before the disposal, before the right issue, before the purchase, before the acquisition, make sure you do the indexation first, then you do the acquisition, or we do the disposal or do the right issue. Do not forget to do the indexation. So you have a cost and indexation cost, and indexation cost will increase the allowance. One thing you have to be careful, if we have an indexation that will create the loss, we cannot take it. For example, your gain is 500 and your indexation allowance is 600. We can take maximum 500. We cannot take 600. Very careful with that. Indexation cannot create the loss, or indexation cannot create the minus balance. Indexation can maximum make it 0. For example, the way we adjust the personal allowance. So if I have income 5,000, I can only minus 5,000 for my personal allowance. I cannot minus 12,570. So you need to be very careful. Indexation cannot create the negative balance. Indexation will not create the minus balance. It only can make it 0. You have to be careful. And again, December up to December 2017. Also, you have to be careful when they will tell you like right issue 2-for-1 or 1:2. You need to understand the meaning of that. 2-for-1. That means if we have a 2 share, I'll give you 1. 2-for-1. So if you have a 1, I'll give you 2. So it depends the way they're saying. So 1-for-2, 2-for-1. It could be 1:2, 2-for-2. You need to be very careful with this wording. So if the question said like 1-for-2, that means if you have a 2 share, I'll give you 1. So if you have a 1,000 share, that means the new right issue will be 500. The next thing is the bonus issue. Remember that because of the bonus issue, there is nothing coming to the business. So the bonus issue is a free share. Because of the bonus issue, remember that only number of share will be increased. Because of the bonus issue, only the number of share will be increased, but no money will come to the business. For that reason, we need to ignore the bonus issue for the indexation purpose. So bonus issue only increase the number of share, not any cost will increase. And because of the bonus issue, we don't have to do the indexation. Very careful with that. So this question will be very much easy question, and all you have to know how to do this thing. If you practice few times, you'll be absolutely fine for this 9 marks question. And then you have to find it out the gain, and you have to find the gain and the indexation gain both. So this question is quite straightforward. Task 6. Tax 7 for 6 months, corporation tax liability. Very simple. Here they will give you sort of the counting profit, and they will ask you to find it out how much is the corporation tax liability. We know the corporation tax percentage is 19%. So if we have the total taxable profit, what we do, we have to multiply with 19% to find it out how much is the corporation tax liability. In the exam, what they normally do, they will make the accounting period more than 12 months. For example, they will make the accounting period 18 months. So we need to know, we need to split it. So first 12 months, then obviously rest of the month. It could be, if it is 18 months, then 12 plus 6. So it will be 12 and 6. If it is 16 months, 12 and 4. So first 12 months we take, and after that we split the rest of the month. We have to be very careful with that, because some of the transaction we have to do accrual basis. For example, the profit, for example, the salaries, anything that will be based on the accrual basis. But some transaction will be the actual basis. For example, the QCD, the qualified charitable donation. So you need to understand which one is the actual basis, which one is the accrual basis. Actual basis means like I do not split based on the time proportion. I record it when it's happened. For example, if the accounting period is for 16 months, and if the QCD I paid on the month number 16, then whole QCD will go there. Not I'll make the divide with 16 or times by 12. We don't do it anymore. But if there is a sharing of profit, that will be the accrual basis. That means everything will be split. So 18-month profit, 12 and 16 you have to split. So you need to know this thing. Very important. Also, the non-trading loan relationship, that could be important as well. And you need to understand if there is a profit that is for especially for the group of company, how we make the tax payment in advance. For example, if there is a profit more than 1.5 million, and if it is a group of company, we need to pay some advance tax every month, 14th. So you need to know that story as well a little bit. It's not very common in the exam, but could come as well. All right, task 8, 15 marks, compliance, very important. So this question will be the mixing of few area, and there will be a sub question. For example, A, B, C, D. It will not only be one question. It will be more than either A, B, C or A, B, C, D, 4 question. Here we are looking at the record keeping. So how long we have to keep the record? For example, for the payroll, for the business documents, how long we have to keep the record? We need to know this area. Tax return deadline. For example, for the corporation tax, it is 9 months, 1 day. For the tax return is 12 months. We have to make a note for that. What is the deadline? If it is a self-assessment, when we have to submit. If it is a paper form, it is 31st of October. If we submit by online, 31st of January. So all this date, we has to be, remember, it has to be on our head. Penalty is very important. At least 5 to 6 months will be from the penalty. So if I'm late 1 month, if I'm late 3 months, if I late more than 6 months, how we calculate the penalty, how we adjust the corporation tax liability with the penalty, what percentage we take. So this sort of thing is very important. Also, like the disclosure and the non-disclosure. So if we tell HMRC by ourselves, like there is an error, and if HMRC find it out, what will be the rate of the penalty? So it will be prompted and unprompted. So we have to make sure you have a note for that, because we are getting 15 marks from this question. Very important. The next one we have for task 9, that is for 12 marks, tax advice. This will be your writing task. Here, obviously, they will give you a situation, and they will, based on the situation, you have to give some comment. And of course, you cannot just write 1 or 2 lines. It's a 12 marks question, so you need to write a lot. So tax advice, we were looking at every single chapter. When you do the chapter from the book, at the end of the chapter, you'll see at the bottom, there is something called tax planning. You need to make sure you read the tax planning for every single chapter. That will give you an idea what sort of tax planning you give. So we first start looking at the tax planning. Tax planning is the legal way to save the tax. So basically, you tell the client, this is the best way you can save some tax. For example, if you have a husband and a wife come to you, the couple, and they say like the husband is working full time and the wife don't work at all, and they're planning to invest some money on Tesco. They want to buy some share from Tesco. So what will be the best option? So you need to tell them like, okay, you can buy the share on your wife's name, because your wife don't pay tax up to the personal allowance, 12,570. So obviously, like if you buy on your name, any dividend you receive, you have to pay the tax. So you have to tell the story based on that. For example, if the scenario come, they will tell you like, oh, the person is working, they have other income, and what is the best option for the Mr. X or Y, is it better to take the salary or is it better to take the dividend? So you have to tell based on the situation. So you need to calculate all the taxable liability. If we take the salary, for example, the class 2 NI, class 4 NI also need to be included. And also if employer's NI, and if the person takes a dividend, so first 2,000 will be free, and after that, how much will be the tax? Depend what type of taxpayer he is. So you need to do all the workings to give the advice, like it is better to take the salary or the dividend. Or if someone comes to you said like, I wanted to start a business and my business will be small or less risk, so what type of business I should start? So should I go for the sole trader? Shall I go for the limited company? So you say like, go for the sole trader because you start a small business, there's a less risk, so you should not start with the limited company, because limited company have more compliance, more cost. You cannot like carry back the loss the way you can do for the sole trader. So you can give that advice. So you need to know what you're saying. You have to give the logic so that you can give the best advice. This question will be kind of the scenario based, and you have to give the tax advice to the client. The next one, tax 10, trading loss, very important. You have to remember very precise rules here. This question will be the multiple choice or true or false. You really don't have to do any workings. You need to say like, oh, this is true, this is false, this is that, this is that. For example, the question will tell you like, the trading loss can be offset from the trading income only from the current year. So is it true or false? So if you say it's false, then you know, because the there's current year loss you can offset from the total income. They can say like a trading loss can be offset for the sole trader from the previous year and the future year, and don't have to adjust on the current year. And you can say it's false. So the loss first need to be adjusted with the current year, then you can go previous year, or you can carry it forward. They can say like the corporation tax can be carried for last 3 years. You say it's false. Corporation tax only can be carried back last 1 year and the future year. So you need to know these rules, and these rules has to be written down on the paper. And this question will be for 8 marks. If you know it, you will get very much like easily this 8 very quickly, because that's like true and false. Just tick, tick, tick. If you know the rules, true or false, what it is, you'll get the full marks. Also, you need to know the opening year rules. If there is opening year loss for the sole trader, we can offset the loss under the FIFO basis last 3 years. If it is the closing year rules, the LIFO basis last 3 years. So you need to know how does it work. If there is an overlap profit, how we adjust the overlap profit, you have to look at that as well. So if you make a note for all of this, you'll be absolutely fine for this 8 marks question. And the final task, we have a question number 11, and that for the 10 marks. Here again, we're looking at some relief. It will be capital gain tax and business asset disposal relief. So we need to remember the plant and machinery has no capital gain and loss. Plant and machinery create the capital allowance. For example, it will increase or decrease the profit, same like inventory. We need to remember the condition for the business asset disposal relief. So if some asset is eligible for the BADR, that is business asset disposal relief, in this sort of asset, we don't have to pay the higher rate of capital gain tax. You only pay the 10%. Even we have a income of 50,000, but we have a limit of 1 million. Up to 1 million, the gain we pay only for 10% rather than 20%. So we need to know the business asset disposal relief condition. So we need to be very careful, especially like how we adjust the annual exemption amount. So if we have an asset that is eligible for the annual exemption amount, that is not eligible for the business asset disposal relief, remember that annual exemption amount first we offset with the non-eligible asset, not from the eligible, because eligible one I'm paying less tax anyway. So you need to be very, very careful with this calculation. And if you make yourself ready, the area we have just talked, you'll be absolutely ready for your exam. Remember that the exam is not a surprise. If you open question number 1, question number 5, question number 7, you know exactly what question will be there, and you need to make yourself ready on that area, and so that you know like what question is there and how can you answer. Remember that do not spend too much time on one question. You make a time, for example, 2 hours, you have 120 minutes for 11 tasks. You divide how many minute per marks, and you allocate exactly the same time. If you cannot finish one question on that time, move to the next question and keep going. If you can finish the exam a little bit early, you come back there. Another thing is like, do not spend too much time on reading the reference material, because reference material just for the emergency backup. It's not like you start reading there and you have no time to answer the question. Make sure you try to remember as much as you can before the exam, not during the exam, looking at the reference material. Hopefully, if you make yourself ready that way, you will be absolutely fine for exam. Hopefully this information will be helpful for you. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any question, feel free to write it down on the comment section, or if you need more advice or any support, feel free to email me. I'll try to help you if I can. Thank you very much.